As Maine mountains go, Mount Kineo isn't especially big or challenging. It only takes about an hour for the average hiker to reach the summit, but once you arrive and scale the steel fire tower, you quickly see why the mountain, the largest chunk of rhyolite stone in North America, has retained an outsized status since the first humans laid eyes on it sometime between 9,000 and 13,000 years ago. For Kineo sits nearly smack in the middle of Moosehead Lake, Maine's largest water body. From atop the fire tower, you can take in Moosehead's shimmering expanse and the surrounding hills, mountains, and lowlands, stretching away, on a clear day, as far as Mount Katahdin. Spread before you is a paradise for those who love the outdoors and seek wild places and wild things. Moose, deer, porcupine, eagle, beaver, bear, osprey, grouse, owl, and numerous other creatures still inhabit the shaggy forests of spruce and pine, maple and birch, while the rivers, lakes, and ponds teem with togue, brook trout, perch, and salmon. The Moosehead region remains a place to forge new stories, to experience a part of Maine that continues to amaze and inspire, and, for some people, a place to call home. Moosehead Magic is brought to you by the Maine Office of Tourism and Destination Moosehead Lake. Additional funding and support was provided by your New England Ford dealers, your local REI co-op. REI believes a life outside is fundamental to a life well lived. Geico. See how much you could save on more than just car insurance. Visit newengland.com. Bangor Savings Bank. And Camping World. At 41 miles long and covering over 118 square miles, Moosehead Lake is the largest water body entirely located within New England, and naturally serves as the centerpiece of the Moosehead region. Like the American writer and philosopher Henry David Thoreau, who explored the Moosehead region in 1853, most visitors get their first glimpse of its blue expanse as they descend Indian Hill and enter the lakeside town of Greenville, population around 1,600. Greenville has served as the hub of the Moosehead region and an embarkation point for wilderness experiences since the early 1800s. Today, it's home to a handful of shops, several seaplane bases, a supermarket, outdoor outfitters, a pharmacy, and several motels and inns, as well as the restored wooden vessel Katahdin, which still cruises the lake. The town also has several restaurants, including places where you can get a cup of coffee and a hearty breakfast at a reasonable price. And if you're not shy about striking up a conversation with your waitress, you might learn a few things about growing up in the Moosehead region. Like many Moosehead area residents, Llewellyn Hughes wears many hats, which change with the seasons. She often helps out at her sister's restaurant, but she's better known as a writer whose column on Maine life has appeared in several newspapers, as well as a book of short essays.
My ancestors migrated down to the Greenville area for lumbering, but my father was in the military. But no matter where he was stationed across the world, he always brought us home to Moosehead for summers so that we would feel like we had roots, and it worked. Of 6 of us children, 5 live in Maine. And we just grew up on the lake, grew up on the water, swimming. We had to do one thing before we were allowed to go swimming. We had to do 2 things actually. We had to check the temperature on the thermometer that was on the front porch. And it had to be, I think, 70 before we were allowed to go swimming. And we had to say pledge allegiance to the flag that was also on the front porch. And then if we did those 2 things and it was 70 degrees, we were allowed to go swimming. We had to pick 10 rocks out of the lake and put them up on the shore. And so now our beach is just sand. And none of the grandchildren are allowed to throw rocks in the lakes because all the moms are like, I pulled that rock out of there.
My connections to Moosehead run deep as well. I got to know the lake and its surrounding mountains when I was 6 years old and my family took its first camping trip to Lily Bay State Park, a tradition that endured for the next 12 summers. I've returned many times since, and the thrill of catching my first glimpse of the lake never fails to evoke those childhood feelings of excitement and imminent adventure, of escaping to a world of woods and water. A recent summer trip brought me back to Lily Bay, midway on the lake's eastern shore, with a camper in tow, and I was overjoyed to see that the place had hardly changed a bit in the past 40 years.
We haven't changed at all. We're still at 93 sites in the campground, and we don't have any hookups. It's 50-50, I'd say, campers and tent sites here. So we're sort of keeping it old school, which I think a lot of people appreciate. Now, a site like this, you're right on the water, you have the cove, so there's a lot to do here on that front, a wide variety of hiking trails nearby as well. And I think the big give on this one is that you have such great water access on a lot of these sites, especially in Rowell.
Lily Bay also features 2 launch facilities with dockage for campers who bring their own boats, along with a picnic area, playground, and swimming beach.
We've really kept it the way it's been for many, many years. And I think in some way that's very special because a lot of other campgrounds are changing to kind of meet with the times and the different needs and try and attract new guests. And I think it's special that Lily Bay is sort of catering to that old school mentality and keeping it real in that sense.
Of course, Lily Bay isn't the only camping option in the area. There are several private facilities, including Northern Pride Lodge, just a few miles up the road in the tiny town of Cacadjo, on the banks of First Roach Pond. Now owned by Wayne and Barbara Plummer, Northern Pride offers tent and RV sites, as well as rooms inside the main lodge. And yes, it's still popular among hunters and fishermen, as well as snowmobilers and ATV riders.
Well, our lodge guests come for a whole variety of reasons. Hunting, we guide moose, we guide bear, we guide deer, rough grouse,
coyote.
Fishing, he has the drift boat. He drifts from the middle of May right through, till you start.
Till bear season
Bear
starts.
season, yeah.
Much of the forest surrounding Moosehead is owned and managed by large timber companies, although the public is welcome to use the roads, as long as they yield right-of-way to logging trucks. This is a prime habitat for moose, which browse on the new growth and aquatic vegetation of the numerous bogs and ponds. It's easy to get lost in the labyrinth of logging roads, which is why moose seekers would be well advised to enlist the aid of a professional.
There he is right there.
What's not fascinating about a moose, really, though? I mean, you just got to take one look at the gumpy-looking buggers and, the long legs, the big nose, the dangly thing from their neck. What the heck's that all about, anyways, I mean, to grow a set of antlers that big every summer and drop them off every fall. I mean, they're just an amazing animals. They spend as much time in the water as a beaver or an otter. That's where they go find their food, a good portion of it at least. So they're quite an amazing animal. Every time I see a moose is like the first time I've ever seen a moose. I mean, I get out there and I had to keep buying different cameras with better steady shots in them because I got to take 45 pictures to get one because I'm shaking like a leaf every time I see one. Can't believe how many people this has been the first time they see a moose. Lived here their whole lives. Me, I don't like going a day without seeing one. That's why I live here. As soon as you get out of this vehicle, you're just going to scare him. He's going to run away, and you're going to cost him precious energy and time and that he needs to be feeding. And that's, everyone's first instinct. Get out, see if you can get closer, get a better picture. And, it's all you're doing is ruining that moose's day by doing that. It's just like a little kid in a candy store to me. You know, I'll never get tired of looking at them funny looking buggers.
When he isn't searching for moose on the back roads of Maine, Harold is on the water at his tricked out fishing boat, trolling for lake trout in the depths of Moosehead. Lake trout, also known as togue, are native to Moosehead and can reach weights of 30 pounds. During the warmer months, they tend to hold in extremely deep, cold water, and presenting a lure to them takes skill and knowledge.
How do you know they're biting?
Time of day, sun's out. They bite a lot better when it's sunny. These lures flash with sunlight. You know, I catch 3 times as many fish when that sun's out versus cloudy skies. So I'm gonna put some fish in the boat.
So tell me about it. Just go over the depth again, like what depths you're looking for when you're fishing in the midsummer months.
Deep water.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
like over 100 feet?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, your water temp. Right now, our surface temp's already 74 degrees. You know, so
that's warm.
Yeah, them fish are just going to keep going deeper, deeper, and deeper. You know, they like it in the 50s, you know, lower 50s. So, and that's where all the smelts and the feed is going to end up too. So, and once these mayflies are done hatching, that's kind of the last big hatch up here, and they're all going to go deep then.
Yep.
Growing up in Michigan, I grew up fishing the Great Lakes. You know, so I was 8 years old running downriggers. My grandfather was a commercial fisherman on the Great Lakes, so coming out here and fishing lake trout and salmon, that's what I was raised doing, and it just happens to be that a lot of equipment and a lot of things were developed on the Great Lakes, and you know, I do very well out here fishing, to say the least, and so it's worked out pretty good for me to be able to take a couple of my favorite hobbies and make a career out of it. And so it's pretty easy to wake up every morning at 4 o'clock and, you know, go fishing or go look at moose. So, bye. All right.
All right. Nice.
Good job.
job, man.
My half-day fishing trip on Moosehead with Harold King proved to be a great success, and Harold sent me back to camp with several fillets for dinner. Aside from lake trout, landlocked salmon, brook trout, perch, and smallmouth bass are also available in the region and can be found in many of the pristine ponds, streams, and rivers. Those who move to the Moosehead region do so for a variety of reasons, be it a love of moose, trout, or simply natural beauty. But for Dan and Ruth McLaughlin, it was the opportunity to revitalize a beautiful 19th century inn that brought them here.
Before we bought the inn, we had never been to Moosehead Lake. We'd never heard of Moosehead Lake. My husband had never been to Maine. We said, yeah, let's put in an offer, and we did, and when it was accepted, we fell over. I hadn't even been here. We didn't know anything about the area. So I flew out the next weekend with my husband, and we checked out the schools for our children and you know, the hospital and things like that, and signed on the dotted line, and here we are. Blair Hill Inn originally was a breeding farm for cattle, sheep, goats, fancy roosters. It was built by a man named Lyman Blair in 1891, and he came out here and vacationed with friends, fell in love with the area, bought the entire 2,000-acre hillside and created the breeding farm, and lived here until his death in 1946. And then we purchased it in 1997. So this is our 23rd season, and we gutted the entire building and restored it, and we created Blair Hill Inn. But when we found this property and made an offer and realized that it was going to become ours, and we quit our jobs and we sold our home and put it into this. We started a restaurant the second year we were here. It's grown in popularity to where I have a waiting list to get into the restaurant every single night. Its reputation is outstanding. So we have the guest rooms, we have full bar and beautiful cocktail lounge, and a dinner, full breakfast service, and then of course our dinners. We have a spa that we opened in one of the back barns that we restored, where we offer massages and facials. I think what makes the Moosehead Lake region so special is it's like stepping back in time. Places like this don't exist in many parts of the world anymore, and our guests see that and know that. So there's that connection to raw nature, but also the town has sort of stood still for a long time, and people love that there's still a place you can go into town and they don't take credit cards. Or there's a sign on the door that says back in 10 minutes, but you don't know when it was put there. People help each other, you know, and people help guests. And if those cars will stop for someone to cross the street. And where people are from, that doesn't happen. It's more rude, it's harder, it's less helpful, less kind, and that still exists here. And it just connects now more than ever really deeply with people.
Finding a German-style Oompa band in northern Maine was one of many unexpected surprises I encountered on my fall return to the Moosehead region. But find one I did at Turning Page Farm and Brewery in the town of Monson. For owners Joy and Tim Bushin, fall is a time for celebration and inviting guests to partake in their annual Oktoberfest ritual, and I was happy to join in.
Turning Page Farm, first of all, was named by my wife and I wanting to turn a page on a new chapter of our lives. So we both quit our corporate jobs that we worked for years and years and years, more than we care to share. And we wanted a different lifestyle. We wanted something a little quieter, a little where the decisions we made were right in front of us and we could see the ramifications, good and bad. And farming just hit that. We love good food, we love good drink, and we thought, let's do something like this. So we originally started with a goat farm. That was our first focus, was a creamery, a dairy, making goat cheese and a little bit of soap as well. And then the brewery came out of just wanting to add another enterprise to the farm. With the new tasting room out here, we're gonna be open all year long. So every Saturday and Sunday, no matter how much snow is thrown at us, we're gonna stay open. We love the outdoors. We love nature, we love the seasons. So we love having snow, we surprisingly, we do love the cold. And to top that all off, the people up here are just amazing. We've absolutely loved all of the people that we've worked with in the community. The local business association in this tiny little town is surprisingly strong and active. So these are Guernsey goats. It's a fairly rare breed for the States. We didn't discover them. We found out about them when we were living in Europe, where they're a lot more common. And then we moved here and wanted Guernseys, and we realized, oh, nobody has Guernseys. There's a lot of interest in this breed, and it's building every day. They're a mid-sized breed. As you can see, they're really friendly.
Yeah.
There's no aggression in this herd at all. They're more curious. And they have really good milk production for their size.
Stories about people ditching the corporate city life for a fresh start are surprisingly common in the Moosehead region. Just outside downtown Greenville, entrepreneur Abby Freethy is carving out her own niche at Northwood's Gourmet Girl.
Years ago, I came to MDI to work as a private chef and fell in love with Maine. I'd felt this, kindred spirit with Maine at that point, and then I felt like I wanted to settle, and I landed here in Greenville.
Since launching Northwood's Gourmet Girl with her popular preservative-free country ketchup, Abby has expanded the company's list of all-natural pantry supplies to include jams, nuts, relish, and dessert sauces. The store also offers a variety of cheeses, coffee, baked goods, sandwiches, and specialty beverages, and will create custom picnic and gift baskets filled with all sorts of delicious and healthy items. Abby has also launched Wicked Maine Pops, a line of all-natural popsicles in a variety of unique flavors. Several decades before Abby settled in the region, Roger and Sue Courier, owner-operators of Courier's Flying Service, had also landed in Greenville.
So how many planes do you own?
Oh gosh, we got probably 6 or 7. We don't use them all. Some of them are in storage. We got 2 down in New Hampshire. I'm the company grease monkey by trade.
Well, that's what you like, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you like working on these engines
Yeah.
and stuff.
And when I was a child, I'd always look up at airplanes and was infatuated with airplanes. So when I got out of college, the Air Force had a good program. I could go into the Air Force and pick my career fields, which I picked aircraft mechanics, which I like working on stuff. So in 1967, I started my love affair with airplanes. I woke up one morning in the late 70s and realized that the southern part of New Hampshire had become another suburb of Boston. And I don't do well in city life. Finally, we bailed out of the southern part of New Hampshire, came up here one time and never went back. And nobody really paid real close attention to high quality sightseeing tours. So that's what I started to do. It's as close as you can get to wilderness in the lower 48. People around Boston, they don't have to travel that far to see this sort of thing. Well, overall, my favorite thing to do is to show passengers like yourself the scenery that we have in the region, what God has done for us up here. I get a lot of satisfaction out of that. I get a lot of satisfaction out of flying the old vintage planes. Sometimes I just go out on my own and just enjoy flying one of them alone.
My seaplane ride with Roger Courier gave me a different perspective on Moosehead. But my next stop, just a few miles west of Greenville, put me back at lake level, or technically below lake level. At the lake's east outlet, I met up with Scott Snell, owner of Wilson's on Moosehead Lake, a venerable sporting camp at the headwaters of the Kennebec River.
So old man Wilson, back in 1865, freshly out of the Civil War, moved back home to Massachusetts. And when he got there, he found it to be a little too crowded. He was looking around for a job. There was an opening here at the sawmill. There's all these loggers around. I need an inn. I need a place to house these guys that are running wood down the river. And almost immediately, the sportsmen started showing up.
Despite the lousy weather, Scott managed to put me on some action with the Kennebec's brook trout, which were gathering to spawn in the section of river just below the east outlet. Brookies are stunningly beautiful fish, with spawning colors seemingly synced to match the brilliant fall foliage along the banks. Catching one is always a thrill. Another important cold water game species in the Kennebec is landlocked salmon, which grow to over 26 inches. Indeed, the upper Kennebec is one of the best places in the world to catch landlocks, although the fish we caught were on the small side. A variety of flies work well on both trout and salmon, although nymphs and streamers generally find favor in the fall. The trick is to keep trying different patterns until you find the one the fish prefer on a given day. The swift currents that support trout and salmon also make the Moosehead region a top destination for whitewater paddling and rafting. Rafting is big business in the area, drawing thousands of people each year who come to experience the mightiest rapids in the Northeast. Those who prefer their aquatic pursuits a bit less dramatic can always launch a canoe or kayak on one of the many small ponds that dot the landscape around Moosehead. At Wilson Pond Cabins, a few miles east of Greenville, I spent a peaceful fall morning paddling a canoe through Big Wilson Pond. My hosts, Rhonda and Bob Dalton, are transplants from the Bangor area who bought the venerable sporting camp sight unseen. It was a story that had become strikingly familiar. Like many of the sporting camps and lodges in northern Maine that once depended solely on hunters and fishermen, Wilson Pond Cabins has adapted to the changing times and now caters to families and those seeking a wide variety of outdoor activities.
What I've heard from most of the people when they get here, first, it's the best kept secret in Moosehead Lake. They like the quietness. They like that they're 3.1 miles from downtown. But when they get here, there's no noise. The cabins are far enough apart that they really don't see or talk to anybody else. So, and they have their own docks, and it's just, they can do what they want to do.
These days, ATV riding has become a big deal in the area, and groomed trails maintained by local clubs wind through the woods. I learned a bit more about the local ATV scene on a brief ride with Jenny Gray of Moosehead Motorsports, a local power sports dealer and service center.
Wow, Jenny, this is a cool spot, huh?
This is a really neat spot. Usually you can catch a couple moose hanging out in here.
Now, we're driving along, what, an old railroad bed?
Yep, this is the old railroad bed. They used to run everything back and forth here, which makes it kind of nice for the ATV club, because now we take over that and fill the holes in, and it's a good base.
So you're a member of a local ATV club.
Yep.
What's the name of that club?
Moosehead ATV Riders.
Mm-hmm. And you maintain stretches of the trails, like that's up to you, like
yes.
your group.
Yeah,
right?
We're a group. We get together once a month, and then we have work. We call them, work days and picnics that we get together and work on the trails and do different things.
So you can, from here though, you can go, all over the place, up to Canada even, right?
Yep.
And down south. How
like
far
if,
south can you
if
go?
we kept going, we could go over to Moxie Falls. We could go down to through Munson, Abbott, Guilford. We have a lot of people that's what they'll do. They'll pack their bag. They'll spend one night in Jackman. They'll come to Greenville. They'll go, so it's kind of a neat.
Kind of a fun way to get outdoors and just zip around out in the woods, right?
Yep. See nature.
Yeah.
See, you see animals, and it's fun. So,
That's
and
great.
it's family. So.
That's right. You can take the whole family doing it, right?
Many ATV riders, as well as snowmobilers, end up at the Birches Resort on the western shore of Moosehead. The Birches has provided lodging for visiting sportsmen since the 1930s. Today, it comprises cozy cabins on the lake, lodge rooms, and large rental homes, and is open year-round. It's also a popular place for lunch or dinner among locals and visitors alike.
The Birches started in 1930 by a logger that retired. He had French loggers from Quebec that came here and hand cut and hand hewn all these logs and built these cabins and the main lodge, the kitchen and whatnot. And he was open for people that came fishing and hunting mostly back then. It's been remodeled and changed to some degree. We've added kitchens in a lot of the cabins over the last 50 years and trying to maintain the place in the traditional sporting camp decor.
Guests at the Birches are treated to stunning views of Mount Kineo, just 2 miles to the east. Those interested in visiting the mountain can do so by taking the seasonal water shuttle from the Rockwood Town Landing, or by making the trip in a private boat. The mountain itself makes for an easy half-day hike and features a sheer cliff face on its eastern side that plunges some 700 feet to the lake's surface. It's part of the 800-acre Mount Kineo State Park, which occupies 2/3 of the peninsula shared by the Mount Kineo Golf Course, which is open to the public. From the public dock, it's a short walk along a former bridle path to 2 of the 3 trailheads leading to the summit. According to Wabanaki legend, Kineo was formed when the creator god Bluskabi killed a giant moose cow on the spot, as the mountain is thought to resemble a recumbent moose in profile. Kineo also provided the Wabanaki with a source of easily flaked rhyolite stone used for making tools and weapons as well as for trading.
So Mount Kineo is famous internationally, not just for tourism, but also because of its formation. And what it's really known for is its Kineo rhyolite, which is a very, very particular kind of flint that's only found here. And the Native Americans 10,000 years ago began coming here to fish and to hunt and to form tools to be used for hunting, fishing, and making huts out of Kineo rhyolite. And it wasn't just the Wabanaki who were coming. Native Americans were coming by great water routes from as far as Pennsylvania.
The settlers of European descent who arrived in the Moosehead region had little use for rhyolite, but they did recognize the Kineo Peninsula as a pretty sweet vacation spot. The flat southern section is the former home of the magnificent Kineo House Resort, which existed in various forms from 1848 to 1938.
In 1893 or thereabouts, they laid out the first version of the golf course. So everything else is gone, but the golf course is still here. It is a 9-hole course. We have 9 greens. It's set up to play as 18. The second time around, you're playing a different set of tees. So you have par changes, distance changes. It is a full-length course. It's over 3,000 yards for 9 holes. Our signatures here are our par 4s. They're longer than average. We have very tight fairways. We have postage stamp greens. These are 1890s sized greens.
Prior to the 1920s, steamboats were the primary mode of aquatic transportation on Moosehead, and dozens of the big wooden vessels once plied the lake. Today, only one remains, the Katahdin, berthed adjacent to the Moosehead Marine Museum in Greenville. Built in 1914, the Kate, as she's affectionately called, once ferried guests to and from Kineo and other lake resorts. In later years, she served a more utilitarian purpose by towing log booms across Moosehead until 1975, when the last log drive took place.
I've lived here in Greenville my whole life up till now, so the exposure to the woods and Moosehead Lake were right from the first things I remember. When I got out of high school, I started working on the log drive, and the first couple years on that was just spent wading through the water picking wood off the shore. I'm like, wow, this is going to be a trip. Holy smokes, what is this going to turn into? So from time to time, when the boat would come over, there'd be light a man. I'd jump on. I'd go, well, I'll go with you guys. I'd hook up with my normal crew in a day or two. So when I first started, again, in the late 60s, there was no thoughts of it. It was just a way of life. It had been done for generations. Went to the closest running stream or body of water and put their wood in it and floated it to their mills. Things were changing. So we were the last ones to go, and we held out until 75 here on Moosehead, 76 on the river below the Forks. Wood coming down the rivers was over with. It's one of those jobs I had, if I had a chance to do it again, I'd do it for nothing. It was a lot of fun.
The Kate remains the last of Moosehead steamships still afloat, but many more lie beneath the lake's surface. One person who has been fascinated by these sunken vessels is filmmaker and diver Ryan Robbins, whose documentary film, Sunken Steamboats of Moosehead Lake, sheds light on the history and fate of these once numerous and important vessels.
So a wooden vessel requires a huge amount of upkeep. Winters here, when the ice freezes, that's not easy on a wooden vessel. At a certain point, the management and the maintenance of that vessel gets to a point where it's not worth continuing. And they would strip the vessel, usually of all of its useful metal parts, and they would drag the remnants of that vessel out to wherever, set it ablaze, and watch it sink.
It really is kind of the great untold secret of Moosehead Lake that these boats lie on the bottom here and there. You can say to people when you're giving a tour, the first Katahdin, because this is the Katahdin 2, burned and sank off of Sandbar Island in 1913. You know, that's one thing to say it, but I don't know that anybody goes further and says, well, geez, it must still be there.
With just one steamship to share the water with, recreational boaters pretty much have the lake to themselves. But even then, Moosehead sees surprisingly little boat traffic. Moosehead Marina in Rockwood is one of the lake's few boat dealerships and service facilities, and I got a personal tour of the waters with second-generation owner Mark Gilbert Jr.
You can go out on Moosehead with a boat that can top 70, 75 miles an hour and draw a straight line from the north end to the south end and not have to swerve for a boat on the busiest weekend of the year. That's the major attraction. Most of your traffic, I'd probably say 75% of it, is from Kineo south. So even on your 4th of July weekend, your Labor Day weekend, your first weekend in August, when everybody wants to be at Moosehead, the second you break past Kineo, your boat traffic decreases significantly. This is that you can go on the lake where as long as you're careful, you'll never see another boat all day.
If you don't have your own boat to trailer to Moosehead, you can rent one from Captain Rogers Pontoon Boats in Rockwood on the Moose River. These wide, stable platforms hold a lot of gear, which makes them ideal for accessing the lake's wilderness campsites. The state of Maine maintains about a dozen of these sites around Moosehead, many featuring picnic tables, fire pits, and nearby outhouses. It's an incredible resource for boaters and paddlers, and it's completely free. For someone used to visiting Moosehead Lake during the warmer months, winter can be something of a shock. The lake, normally a shimmering blue expanse, is now a solid sheet of white. From the top of Indian Hill, all seems quiet. But as you descend into downtown Greenville, you begin to hear and see snowmobiles zipping around the frozen surface of the lake, now dotted by dozens of ice fishing shelters. Things are happening. And if you venture west along Route 6 to Greenville Junction, on a select Saturday when conditions are right, you might be lucky enough to witness a uniquely Maine form of automotive competition.
Well, it's West Cove Ice Racing Association. We've been at this for over 30 years.
30 years?
Yeah, I've only been doing it about 7 or 8 years, but you know, I moved up here, and then one day I was snowmobiling across the lake, and I saw some craziness going on over here. Lo and behold, next year I had a car. I have a full roll cage in there. This is my co-pilot. And actually,
does he have a name?
I don't know, but it's the smartest person in the car. And it gives me 1 extra horsepower. We're extremely weather dependent. We have to have a minimum of 21 inches of ice. And so depending on how the weather goes, this has been a great year. We've already done 5 races, and we probably have, I don't know, between 3 and 4 feet of ice right now. So we're doing pretty well on here. Every weekend we go through at least 6 inches, sometimes 8 inches of ice, depending on.
Wow, that much?
So the corners keep getting banked out, and if we have really cold weather, then sometimes we can flood it. You know, we'll come out here, if some guy car is not working, everybody will pitch in, give them tools, give them parts. You know, it's not a cutthroat situation until we get on the track. Then it gets a little cutthroat. We have a 4-cylinder class, and that's what's running right now. And then after that, we have the open class, which anything goes.
A great spot to watch the ice races while enjoying a hearty meal or drink is Kelly's Landing, which in warmer months serves as one of the lake's only dock and dine restaurants. Down the road a bit in the neighboring town of Shirley, Mark and Ashley Patterson were preparing for a very different sort of race when I called on them. The Pattersons raise sled dogs, a whole lot of them, and compete in regional mushing competitions, including the prestigious Can-Am Crown. In the 2020 race, Ashley placed 4th overall in the grueling CAC 250, finishing the 247.5-mile course in 35 hours, 29 minutes.
The way we go about selecting a team really starts from day one in the fall training. Once it gets hard, that's when you start picking out the guys. But they have to eat, they have to have good manners, all these things that you're crossing your fingers that they should have. But what if they have an off day? Because just like a human, sometimes people are tired, sometimes they're sick. There's a lot of things that come into play. So yes, you do pick certain dogs that will be ideal. Usually it's age. And to tell you the truth, even though I've had dogs all my life, you're always wondering if you made a mistake. Every musher goes through the same thing of what if? And a lot of it can really just be based on if you like the dog. That's really what it comes down to. You gotta like them. That's what I always find interesting about racing. Everything's very overwhelming in the beginning, and then you get out there in the woods where there's nobody but you and the dogs. You're just out there in the middle of nowhere, and you depend on the dogs. And hey, if they want to stop because you've entered a snowstorm, we've actually had scenarios where you've actually gone through 18 inches of fresh snow, and you imagine doing that as just a person. Now put that into the dog's brains where everything gets really slow and boring. So that's why you got to be really good at faking like you're happy, and you're always good at changing the mood of the dogs along with even it affecting your own mood. I guess I've always accepted that, hey, it's an animal, not a machine. It's more so an understanding it's a working dog, but yes, they would just assume be with you all their life.
As I learned, there's a lot more to sled dog racing and sled dog raising than meets the eye. But then again, that was becoming the underlying theme of my winter visit to the Moosehead region. Despite its abundance of mountains, the Moosehead region doesn't hold many options for downhill skiing and snowboarding. One exception is the ski area at Big Moose Mountain, just outside Greenville Junction. First opened in 1963 with a base lodge, 4 trails, and a T-bar tow, the ski area has long served as a community gathering spot where generations of Moosehead residents have learned to ski and snowboard at an affordable price. In 1967, ski operations were expanded. A double lift providing access to the summit of the mountain was constructed, along with a 2-story hotel and upper base lodge. After changing ownership several times over the next 3 decades, and following a chairlift accident in 2004, ski operations on the upper mountain were closed, followed 2 years later by the hotel. The remaining lifts shut down in 2010. But that wasn't the end of the story. In 2013, a nonprofit group supported by volunteers and numerous state and local businesses stepped in to manage the lower half of the mountain and keep the trails, base lodge, and lifts open during the winter. In addition to its downhill trails, the ski area at Big Moose Mountain also maintains cross-country ski and snowshoe trails that are open to the public. But true enthusiasts of these winter activities will find nirvana a bit farther afield. In the heart of the 100-mile wilderness east of Moosehead, the Appalachian Mountain Club manages a large tract of critical forest and watershed. Over its 18 years of ownership, AMC has also acquired 3 former sporting camps that once catered mainly to fishermen and hunters. The camps, which comprise rustic cabins, a communal bunkhouse, a bathhouse, and a main dining lodge, are available for group, family, and individual stays. They're open from late December through early March and from late May through mid-October.
The Appalachian Mountain Club is the country's oldest conservation group. We've been around since 1876, and we service the whole Northeast, up and down the whole Appalachian Mountain region. And AMC, from its inception, has always been about, by putting people in direct contact with nature, you're able to develop a really intense commitment to stewardship, environmental stewardship, and an environmental ethic where, that outdoor recreation component serves as the gateway. So in 2003, AMC took a ginormous leap and bought this tract, the 37,000-acre Katahdin Ironworks tract from International Paper. And then that opened the gateway for us, and we were able to acquire enough land so that today we're at 75,000 acres, soon to be 100,000 acres with another addition that we're working on currently. Now, this is the largest remaining contiguous forest left anywhere in the United States. It's 10.4 million acres. Growing up here, the forest it just defines everything that we do. It's where we make our living, and it's how our communities are built and how our lives are structured. So, for me, it was a wonderful experience, and it still is, to be able to run around on this land base, hunting and fishing and canoeing and cross-country skiing and snowmobiling, and just really enjoying unfettered public access, which is so unique for a private network of lands that exist here in northern Maine. So Little Lyford is just a classic Maine sporting camp that started out life as a logging camp, and then once the logging in the area was done in the mid-19th century, it transitioned over into a sporting camp facility. So you've got a lodge where folks take their meals, you've got a bathhouse where folks use the shower facilities and the bathrooms, and then we've got a whole series of original cabins, some of them which date back to the 1890s, 1910s, and that AMC has been committed to rebuilding and maintaining. Cross-country ski trails run the gamut from sort of classic New England trails that are narrow, maybe tracked experiences, to broader skate skiing lanes. We also have 50 acres of glade skiing up on the side of Third Mountain, which is accessible by sort of AT-style touring skis up to the top and then ski back down through. So it's a broad mix that covers a tremendous amount of terrain. Our 90 miles of trail are all groomed every day. It's the largest free to the public network anywhere in New England. So this is a brown ash tree, and we've got 2 different species of ash in Maine, white ash and brown ash. And for the Wabanaki, or the First Nations, the 4 tribes that still call Maine home for 12,000 years, this is central to their place in this landscape. So all 4 tribes share the same element of their creation story, where Gluskabe, the Great Spirit, shot an arrow into the brown ash tree, and when his arrow hit the brown ash tree, it split open and people emerged. The Wabanaki people came out of the brown ash. So we've got a nice, strange little yellow birch that looks like it's been hit many times by ice right here on the riverbank. And on one of the wounds on the side of the yellow birch, we've got a chaga fungus, which is a traditional medicinal fungus that has been used by the First Nations here for centuries. It's been used for medicinal purposes for thousands of years. And that's what's so great about these floodplain forests like this, where the river's right there, and this whole area floods several times throughout the year, so it's a very rich environment. You see this really, really old yellow birch tree. It's probably 300 to 400 years old. And if you look around, you can see all these late successional hardwood trees. So we've got a big stand of really mature trees through here. That this is what we're trying to develop the forest into through forest management. So I won't live long enough to see the forest look like this, but this is the hope, that we'll have big old trees scattered throughout the forest, and we'll continue to manage it. And this is storing carbon, and it's also providing a wide array of habitat types for a huge number of species here in northern Maine.
While the Maine wilderness offers no shortage of natural wonders to see during the day, a recent initiative by the AMC and the International Dark Sky Association hopes to preserve a phenomenon that can only be experienced after dark.
When you look at a map of the United States at night, this is the last dark space on the map. So it's us. When people come and stay with us for the first time, they're amazed at how bright and dense the stars are in the sky. They're just not used to seeing that. And the value that it contributes to their visit and to their well-being is just amazing.
AMC's sort of focus on owning land here was to try to develop a new model of large land ownership where you combine purposefully forest management with landscape scale conservation and purpose-built outdoor recreation. So, when you come in and you experience this land base, you're taking part in a massive 157 square mile conservation project. And it's a pretty meaningful thing, when folks show up and they experience this, that you can meld all these values into one economic engine that is really bolstering the local economy here.
Cross-country skiing is a fine way to get around the woods in winter, but if you want to cover some ground quickly, nothing beats a snowmobile. Or a seaplane for that matter. John Willard, owner of the Birches Resort on Moosehead's western shore, has both. I met up with John shortly after my return from Little Lyford, and he took me on a late afternoon ride to Mount Kineo, 2 miles across the lake. As you would expect, snowmobiling is a big deal in the Moosehead region, and the sport attracts droves of passionate riders to the area each year. Many spend several days traversing the vast network of trails that provide access to remote corners of northern Maine and southern Canada, stopping at cozy inns, hotels, camps, and restaurants along the way. The considerable work of maintaining and grooming these trails is carried out by local snowmobile clubs, as well as many businesses that cater to snowmobilers. With nearly 3 feet of ice under us, Moosehead was safe for just about any activity, including float plane flying. A licensed pilot for 40 years, John never needs an excuse to fly, and he couldn't resist taking his 1947 Piper Super Cruiser for a spin. Moosehead Lake is big, and so are many of the fish that swim below its frozen surface. The lake holds landlocked salmon, brook trout, lake trout, and smallmouth bass, as well as perch and cusk, all of them targets of ice fishermen. In recent years, brook trout, some topping 7 pounds, have been providing historic action for ice anglers. But it was lake trout, or togue, that were the target of Scott Dean and Les Harding on the day I joined them at their ice fishing outpost off Rockwood. Moosehead produces some whopper lakers, including a fish that nearly topped 30 pounds, taken back in 2009. It's togue of that size that keeps ice fishermen coming back to Moosehead year after year, and competing in the annual derby that draws upwards of 3,000 anglers.
Fishing on Moosehead's been great. Well, what they did was, it worked. So there was a lot of negative comments. People didn't know if the biologists were doing the right thing, but the proof's in the pudding. Vexilar is it's what they call a flasher, but it's kind of a fish locator. You can tell if there's a fish down there, and if there's a fish down there and he's not biting, I'll work him a little bit, and I work him up down the water column a little bit. If he still doesn't bite, I switch out lures.
Oh yeah, baby! Awesome. Sweet.
You'll be eating fish now.
Oh, good. All right, we got our lunch. Woo!
While we never bagged any record-sized togue, the highlight was the on-ice fish fry presided over by Dean Harding. I'd say that was a pretty good way to cap off my action-packed winter visit to a part of Maine that knows how to have a good time, no matter what the season. As you've seen, there really isn't a bad time to visit the Moosehead region, with each month offering its own unique set of attractions and diversions. Whether you like to hike, paddle, snowmobile, fish, ski, camp, or mountain bike, you'll find a beautiful place to do it. And along the way, you're sure to meet a few people who have already figured that out. and who themselves have become part of the Moosehead experience. Life in northern Maine isn't for everyone, of course, but isn't that sort of the point?
Thank you.